The chains were heavy. They bit into the skin of his wrists as two guards dragged him across the hot sand. The arena was massive. It stretched out like a bowl carved from black stone, and every seat was filled with creatures that were not human. They were tall, very tall. The smallest of them stood at 7 feet, and their skin was covered in scales that shone like dark purple metal. Their eyes were gold, and their teeth were sharp. They roared and screamed as was thrown into the center of the arena. The sound was like thunder rolling across mountains. Landed hard on his knees. The sand was red. He knew why. This place was called the Arena of Bones for a reason. Countless enemies of the Empire had died here. Their blood had soaked into the ground over thousands of years. He looked up at the crowd. 50,000 stared down at him. Some were laughing. Some were pointing. To them he was nothing. Just a weak creature from a small planet called Earth. Just entertainment before dinner. Slowly got to his feet. His body hurt. They had beaten him for 3 days before bringing him here. His ribs were cracked. His left eye was swollen shut, but he stood anyway. A gate on the far side of the arena began to open. The crowd went silent. Then they began to chant a single name. She walked out of the darkness like a demon from an old story, was 8 feet tall. Her scales were darker than the others, almost black, with streaks of violet that caught the light. Her armor was gold and red, and it covered her body like a second skin. In her right hand she carried a blade that hummed with blue energy. Plasma. One touch would burn through flesh and bone. She was beautiful in the way that a storm is beautiful, dangerous, powerful, unstoppable. Walked toward with slow, heavy steps. Each footfall made the ground shake. She stopped 10 feet away from him and looked down. Her golden eyes studied him like he was an insect. "So," she said, her voice was deep and smooth, "this is the human who killed 12 of my soldiers." Said nothing, he just watched her. "They told me your kind was weak," continued. "Soft bodies, dull teeth, no claws, no scales, nothing but pink skin and fear." She tilted her head. "Yet you killed 12 of my warriors with your bare hands." The crowd murmured. They had not known this. Still said nothing. He was studying her, the way she held her blade, the way she balanced her weight, the small movements of her eyes. He was learning her. Raised her blade and pointed it at his chest. "I am Princess of the Empire, champion of the Blood Throne, and I have never lost a battle. I have killed thousands. Warriors, generals, kings." She lowered her voice. "I will give you one chance, human. One chance to live. Kneel before me. Bow your head and accept your place as a slave. Do this and I will let you breathe for another day." The arena was completely silent now. Every leaned forward in their seat. They all expected the same thing. They expected the human to fall to his knees and beg for mercy. That was what weak creatures did. Looked at her blade, then he looked at her face, then slowly he smiled. It was not a nervous smile. It was not the smile of a man who had given up. It was the smile of a man who knew something that no one else in this arena knew. "No," he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the sand. Blinked. For a moment, she did not understand. No one had ever refused her before. "What did you say?" she asked. "I said no," rolled his shoulders and raised his fists. His hands were empty. He had no weapon, no armor, nothing but his broken body and his will to live. "I will not kneel." The crowd exploded with noise. Some were angry, some were laughing. A few were confused. This human was going to fight against, it was suicide, it was madness. Stared at him for a long moment, then something strange happened. She smiled too. It was a smile full of sharp teeth. "Good," she said. "I was hoping you would say that." She moved, fast, faster than anything had ever seen. Her blade cut through the air in a blur of blue light aimed straight at his neck. It should have killed him. It would have killed any normal human. But was not normal. He had been watching her, learning her. In the 3 seconds she had been standing in front of him, he had memorized 27 details about her body, the tension in her right shoulder, the slight favor she gave to her left leg, the tiny delay between her eyes moving and her body following. He moved. The blade passed through empty air, missing his throat by less than an inch. The crowd gasped. Eyes went wide. Had her strike, not by running, not by jumping, just by reading her body and moving at exactly the right moment. It was like he had known what she was going to do before she did it. Spun and slashed again, ducked. She thrust her blade forward, he twisted to the side. She brought it down in a crushing overhead strike. He stepped back, letting the blade bury itself in the sand. The crowd had gone silent again, but this silence was different. This was the silence of disbelief. Pulled her blade free and stared at. He was breathing hard. Sweat ran down his face. His body was screaming with pain, but he was still standing, still smiling. How demanded. How are you doing this? You are human, you are weak, you should be dead. Wiped blood from his lip. You are strong, he said. Very strong, but you have never fought someone like me before. Someone like you, laughed, but there was no humor in it. What are you? Raised his fists again. I am human, and humans do not kneel. Roared and charged at him again. Her blade became a storm of blue fire. She was faster now, angrier, more dangerous. But kept moving. He dodged and weaved and slipped past her attacks. He could not hurt her, he knew that. Her scales were like armor and her strength was 10 times his own. But he did not need to hurt her, he just needed to survive. And surviving was what humans did best. The fight continued. Minutes passed, landed blows that cracked his bones and tore his skin. Blood covered the sand beneath his feet. Any other creature would have died 5 times over. But did not fall. Every time she knocked him down, he got back up. Every time she cut him, he smiled. It was driving her mad. Finally caught him. She grabbed his throat with her massive hand and lifted him off the ground. Her blade pressed against his chest, ready to pierce his heart. Enough games, she hissed. Her golden eyes burned with frustration. Why will you not kneel? Why will you not die? Looked at her through his one good eye. His voice was a whisper, but she heard every word. Because my people learned something long ago. We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. We have no claws, no scales, no armor. He smiled one last time. But we never give up, ever. And that is why you will never break us. Stared at him, something flickered in her eyes. Something she had never felt before. Doubt. Before she could drive her blade home, a voice boomed across the arena. Stop. Everyone froze. High Commander stood at the edge of the arena. Behind her was a messenger carrying the seal of the Empress herself. The Empress wishes to see the human, announced, alive. Looked at, then at the messenger, then back at. Slowly she released his throat. He fell to the sand, gasping for breath. This is not over, she said quietly. Looked up at her and laughed. It was a broken, painful sound. No, he agreed, it is just beginning. The guards came to take him away, not to the dungeons this time, to the imperial palace. And in the stands, 50,000 sat in stunned silence, wondering how a single human had done the impossible. He had faced and he had survived. The walk from the arena to the imperial palace took 1 hour, was not dragged this time. He walked on his own feet, though every step sent pain through his body. 4 guards surrounded him, their golden eyes watching his every move. The palace rose from the ground like a mountain made of crystal and steel. It was the largest building had ever seen. Towers reached toward the purple sky, and bridges of glass connected them like spiderwebs. Everything about it screamed power. Everything about it said that they were masters of this galaxy. But was not afraid. He had stopped being afraid a long time ago. They took him through halls of black marble. Statues of ancient warriors lined the walls, each one telling a story of conquest and glory. Notice something interesting. There were no statues of defeats, no memorials to battles lost. They only remembered their victories. That told him a lot about who they were. Finally, they reached a large door made of some metal that shone like liquid silver. The guards stopped and stepped aside. One of them pressed a symbol on the wall, and the door slid open. "Enter," a voice said from inside. It was old and dry, like wind blowing through dead leaves. Walked in. The room was not what he expected. It was small and simple. No gold, no statues, just stone walls and a single window that looked out over the city below. In the center of the room sat an old woman. Empress. She was ancient. Her scales had faded to gray, and her body was thin and bent with age. But her eyes were sharp. They were the color of burnt gold, and they held a weight that could feel pressing against his mind. "Sit," she said, pointing to a cushion on the floor in front of her. Sat, his body thanked him for it. For a long moment the Empress just looked at him. She studied his face, his hands, his wounds. She was reading him the same way he had read in the arena. "You are not what I expected," she finally said. "What did you expect?" asked. "A beast, a monster, something that could explain how you killed 12 of my soldiers." She tilted her head. "But you are just a man, small, broken, bleeding." She leaned forward. "And yet you made hesitate. Do you understand how remarkable that is?" She hesitated because she was confused, said. "I did not fight the way she expected." "No, you did not," the Empress smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Tell me, human, what do you know about your own history?" Frowned. "My history. The history of your species, the history of Earth. I know enough." "Do you?" The Empress stood slowly and walked to the window. 10,000 years ago, my ancestors sent a fleet to your planet, 100 warships, 50,000 soldiers. They were going to conquer Earth and add humanity to our empire." Said nothing, but his heart began to beat faster. "They failed," the Empress continued. "Not because your technology was better. Your people were still using bronze and stone. Not because you had magic or special powers. You had nothing." She turned to look at him. "They failed because your people would not stop fighting. They would not surrender. They would not break." She walked back toward him, her old bones creaking with each step. "My ancestors burned your villages. Your people rebuilt them and attacked at night. They killed your warriors. Your farmers picked up spears and became warriors. They destroyed your armies. Your women and children set traps and poisoned their food." Her voice dropped low. "They cut off one head and 10 more grew in its place. For every soldier that landed on Earth, 3 never came home." Felt something cold run through his blood. This was not in any history book. This was not taught in any school. "We erased it," the Empress said, as if reading his thoughts. "We burned the records. We killed everyone who remembered. We declared Earth a forbidden zone and pretended your species did not exist." She sat down in front of him again. "Because we were ashamed. The mighty empire defeated by animals with sticks and stones." "Why are you telling me this?" asked. "Because war is coming." The Empress's eyes grew dark. "A force called the Void Syndicate is moving through the galaxy. They have destroyed 12 civilizations in the past 50 years. They do not conquer. They do not negotiate. They simply erase everything, everyone. And you want my help. I want you to teach my warriors how to fight like humans." The Empress leaned forward, not with strength, not with honor, with stubbornness, with tricks, with the madness that lets a dying man smile at his killer. Was quiet for a long time. He thought about his home, about Earth, about the people he had left behind. "What do I get in return?" he asked. "Protection. When the Syndicate comes for your planet, and they will come, the fleet will defend it." "Not enough." The Empress raised an eyebrow. "You are in no position to bargain, human." "I am in the only position that matters." Met her eyes without fear. "You need me, you just admitted it. Your warriors are strong, but strength is not enough against an enemy that does not care about honor or glory. You need someone who fights dirty, someone who survives." He paused. "That is me." The Empress studied him for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was a dry, crackling sound, but it was real. "What do you want?" she asked. "Free all human prisoners in your empire, every single one. There is a young engineer named Li Minyu being held in your labor camps. I want him released first." "Done. What else?" "I want equal standing, not a slave, not a pet, an ally. When I speak, your warriors will listen." "That will be harder. My people are proud." "Then they need to learn that pride can be a weakness." Stood up slowly, ignoring the pain in his legs. "I watched fight. She is strong, maybe the strongest warrior I have ever seen, but she lost the moment she got angry. She let her pride control her instead of controlling her pride." The Empress nodded slowly. "You are wise for such a young creature." "I am human. We learn fast, we have to." The Empress rose and extended her hand. It was an old gesture, one that recognized. A handshake. Somewhere in the past 10,000 years, they had learned it from Earth. "We have an agreement," she said. "You will train my warriors. In return, I will protect your world and free your people." Took her hand. Her grip was weak with age, but he felt the power that still lived inside her. "There is one more thing," the Empress said as she released his hand. "What?" "Will be assigned as your guard. She will watch you, protect you, and learn from you." Almost laughed. "She wants to kill me." "Yes, she does." The Empress smiled that cold smile again. "But she is also the only one of my warriors who saw what you truly are." She felt doubt for the first time in her life. That doubt is a crack in her armor. I need you to break it open and rebuild her into something greater. "And if she kills me first?" "Then I was wrong about humans." The Empress turned back to the window. "But I do not think I am wrong. I think you will surprise her. I think you will surprise everyone." The door opened behind. He turned and saw standing there. Her face was like stone, but her golden eyes burned with emotions he could not read. Anger, confusion, something else. "You," she said. Her voice was tight. "Me," replied. They stared at each other for a long moment. The Empress watched them both with ancient, knowing eyes. "Go," the Empress said. "Learn from each other. The war is coming faster than any of us know." Turned and walked out. After a moment followed. As they walked through the crystal halls of the palace, spoke without looking at him. "I do not understand you," she said. "I have killed hundreds of enemies. None of them smiled at me. None of them refused to kneel. None of them made me feel." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "What are you?" Looked up at her. She was still terrifying, still powerful, still deadly. But now he saw something else in her eyes, curiosity. "I am human," he said simply, "and I think you are about to learn what that means." Stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned and kept walking. But noticed something. Her steps were different now, less certain, less proud. The crack in her armor was growing. And somewhere out in the darkness of space, the Void Syndicate was moving closer. The war was coming. But for the first time thought they might actually have a chance. 3 weeks passed, was given a room in the military sector of the palace. It was small but clean. A bed, a desk, a window that looked out over the training grounds below. He could see hundreds of soldiers practicing combat every day. They moved with power and precision. Every strike was perfect. Every formation was flawless. And that was exactly the problem. Came to his room every morning. She never knocked. She simply opened the door and stood there watching him like a predator watching prey. She did not trust him. She did not like him. But she had her orders, and warriors always followed orders. "The Empress wants you in the archives today," she said on the morning of the 22nd day. Looked up from the book he was reading. It was a history text, translated into a language his brain implant could understand. He had been studying their wars, their victories, their strategies, learning everything he could. "The archives," he asked. "Why?" "She did not tell me why. She only told me to bring you." His voice was flat. "Now." Closed the book and stood up. His body had healed well. Medicine was advanced, and most of his wounds had closed within the first week, but some scars remained. He would carry them for the rest of his life. They walked through the palace in silence, had gotten used to this, did not like to talk. She preferred to watch and listen. It was one of the few things they had in common. The archives were located deep beneath the palace. They took a lift that descended for several minutes, going far underground. When the doors opened, found himself in a massive chamber filled with crystals. Each crystal was the size of a person, and they glowed with soft blue light. Thousands of them stood in rows that stretched into the darkness. Data storage, explained. Every piece of information the Empire has collected over 50,000 years is stored here. Walked among the crystals, his eyes wide. This was more knowledge than existed in every library on Earth combined. The Empress was waiting for them at the center of the chamber. She stood in front of a crystal that was different from the others. It was black, and it gave off no light. "Leave us," the Empress said too. Hesitated. "Empress, my orders are to stay with the human at all times." "I am changing your orders. Wait outside." Looked at then at the Empress. Her jaw tightened, but she bowed and walked back toward the lift. Watched her go. He could feel her frustration even from across the chamber. When they were alone, the Empress placed her hand on the black crystal. It began to glow with a deep red light. "This is the Forbidden Archive," she said. "Only 3 people in the Empire know it exists. Now you are the 4th. What is in it?" "The truth." The Empress closed her eyes, and the crystal projected images into the air around them. Saw ships, warships, but older than the ones he had seen. They were descending toward a blue and green planet that he recognized immediately. "Earth." "I told you about the invasion," the Empress said, "but I did not tell you everything." The images changed. He saw soldiers marching across fields and forests. He saw them burning villages made of wood and straw. He saw humans running, screaming, dying. But then he saw something else. He saw humans fighting back. Not with technology, not with advanced weapons, with spears and clubs and rocks, with fire and water in their bare hands. He saw a group of farmers ambush a patrol and drag them into pits filled with sharpened stakes. He saw women pour boiling water from castle walls onto soldiers trying to climb. He saw children leading squads into swamps where they sank and drowned. "Your people were supposed to be conquered in 3 days," the Empress said quietly. "The war lasted 15 years." Watched the images in silence. He saw his ancestors fight and die. He saw them lose battle after battle, but they never stopped. "In the end, we retreated," the Empress continued. "Not because we were defeated in open combat. We could have burned your entire planet to ash from orbit, but my ancestor Empress made a different choice." "Why?" The Empress looked at him with those ancient golden eyes. "Because she realized something terrible, something that haunted her until the day she died." She paused. "She realized that if we destroyed Earth, we would create a legend. Stories would spread across the galaxy about the species that fought the Empire to mutual destruction. Other conquered peoples would hear those stories and find hope. They would rebel. They would resist. The Empire would crumble from within." She waved her hand, and the images disappeared. "So she chose to hide instead. She erased Earth from our maps. She killed everyone who knew about the invasion. She created the quarantine and declared your system forbidden." The Empress sat down on a stone bench, her old body tired. "And for 10,000 years it worked. Humanity was forgotten. The Empire remained strong." "Until now," said. "Until now," the Empress nodded. "The Void Syndicate is different from any enemy we have faced before. They do not fight for territory or resources or glory. They fight because they believe organic life is a disease that must be cured. Their soldiers are machines merged with flesh. They feel no fear. They know no mercy. They simply destroy. And your warriors cannot beat them." "No," The word seemed to cause the Empress physical pain. "We have fought them twice. Both times we lost. Not because they were stronger, our soldiers are stronger. Not because they were faster, our soldiers are faster. We lost because they do not fight by our rules. They do not care about honor or single combat or glorious charges. They use deception and ambush and suicide attacks. They fight like—" She stopped. "Like humans," finished. Yes, the Empress met his eyes, like humans. Sat down across from her. His mind was racing. Everything he had been taught about Earth's history was incomplete. His ancestors had faced an alien invasion and survived. They had made the mightiest empire in the galaxy retreat, and no one on Earth knew. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Really?" "I want you to teach," the Empress said. "She is the strongest warrior of her generation. She will be Empress one day if she lives that long, but strength is not enough anymore. She needs to learn to think like a human, to fight like a human, to survive like a human. And if she refuses to learn—" "She will not refuse," the Empress smiled, but it was sad. "She came to me 3 days after your fight in the arena. She could not sleep. She kept seeing your face, that smile. She asked me what was wrong with her. Do you know what I told her?" "What?" "Nothing is wrong with you. Something is right. For the first time in your life, you met an enemy you could not simply destroy, and now you must grow to face him." Thought about this for a long moment. He thought about her pride, her power, her fury, but also her confusion, her questions, her doubt. "She hates me," he said. "She fears you," the Empress corrected. "She does not understand what you are, and things she does not understand frighten her. That fear is the door. You must open it." The lift doors opened across the chamber, stepped out and walked toward them. Her face was carefully blank, but could see the tension in her shoulders. "Your time is up," she said too. "Training begins in 1 hour." Stood and bowed slightly to the Empress. "Thank you for showing me the truth." "Use it well," the Empress replied. "The fate of 2 species depends on it." Asin walked back to the lift. He could feel her eyes on him. She wanted to ask what he had seen, what he had learned, but her pride would not let her. "Do you know why humans are dangerous?" asked suddenly. Did not answer. "It is not because we are strong. We are not. It is not because we are smart. There are smarter species in the galaxy." He looked up at her. "It is because we never believe we are beaten. Even when we are dying, even when everything is lost, we find a way." "That sounds like madness," said. "Maybe it is," smiled. "But it kept us alive for 10,000 years, and it will keep us alive now." Stopped walking. She stood in the middle of the corridor, her hands clenched into fists. "I am trying to understand you," she said quietly, "but I cannot. Every rule I know says you should be dead. Every instinct I have says you are prey, but you are not dead and you are not prey." She turned to face him. "What are you?" "I am your teacher," said, "if you are willing to learn." Stared at him for a long time. Then slowly she nodded. "Teach me," she said. "Teach me to fight like a human." Smiled. It was the same smile he had given her in the arena. "Then let us begin." Somewhere far above them, the stars were moving. The Void Syndicate was getting closer every day. War was coming to the Empire. But for the first time, the Empire had something new, something unexpected, something human. Hope, the training grounds were empty, had requested it that way. No audience, no witnesses, just him and under the purple sky of the. Stood at the center of the sand pit, her practice sword in hand. It was not a real blade, but it could still break bones if she hit hard enough. She waited with the patience of a hunter, her golden eyes tracking as he walked in circles around her. "You are too still," said. "You stand like a mountain waiting to be attacked." "A mountain cannot be moved," replied. "A mountain can be climbed, or walked around, or ignored entirely." Stopped moving and faced her. "What happens when your enemy refuses to attack? What happens when they simply wait?" Frowned. "Then I attack them." "And if they run?" I chase them. And if they lead you into a trap. Opened her mouth, then closed it. Her frown deepened. This is what I mean, said. He picked up his own practice sword, a wooden stick that looked like a toy next to her weapon. Warriors are trained to be strong, to be fast, to be brave, but you are not trained to be patient. You are not trained to think about what your enemy wants. My enemy wants to survive, said. They all want to survive. Yes, and that is their weakness, raised his stick. Attack me. Moved, she was fast, incredibly fast. Her practice sword cut through the air like lightning, aimed at his chest. Did not block, he did not dodge. He simply stepped backward, letting her blade miss by inches. She swung again. He stepped aside again. He ducked. Stop running, growled. Fight me. I am fighting you. Kept moving, always staying just out of reach. I am fighting the way humans fight. I am making you angry. I am making you tired. I am making you make mistakes. Roared and charged at him with everything she had. Her sword became a blur of strikes, each one powerful enough to shatter stone. Dodged and weaved, his smaller body slipping through gaps that should not have existed. Then suddenly he stopped. He dropped his stick and stood perfectly still. His blade stopped an inch from his face. Why did you stop? She demanded. Because you hesitated, smiled. You had a perfect strike. I was completely open, but you stopped yourself. Stared at him, her arm was trembling. She lowered her blade slowly. I do not want to kill you, she said quietly. It sounded like a confession. Why not? I do not know. Her voice was confused, lost. In the arena, I wanted nothing more than to cut you in half, but now, she shook her head. You have done something to me. I do not understand it. Picked up his stick and walked toward her. He was close enough now that she could kill him with a single movement, but she did not move. I have not done anything, he said. You are changing on your own. You are asking questions you never asked before. You are seeing things you never saw before. He looked up at her towering form. That is called growth. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she sat down on the sand. It was the first time had seen her do anything that was not standing or fighting. My whole life I have been told that strength is everything, she said. That the strong survive and the weak die. That victory is the only thing that matters. She looked at her hands. But you are not strong, and yet you survive. You win without winning. You fight without fighting. She looked at him. How? Sat down across from her. The purple sky was turning orange as the sun began to set. On Earth we have a saying, he said. The tree that bends does not break. Do you know what that means? Shook her head. When a storm comes, a strong tree tries to stand against the wind. It refuses to move, and sometimes the wind is so strong that the tree snaps. Drew a line in the sand. But a flexible tree bends with the wind. It moves. It yields. And when the storm passes, it stands back up again. You are saying strength can be a weakness. I am saying that true strength is knowing when to be hard and when to be soft, when to fight and when to retreat, when to stand your ground and when to adapt, smiled. Your warriors are all hard, all strong, all unbending, but the Void Syndicate is not like any enemy you have faced. They are the storm, and if you do not learn to bend, they will break you. Stared at him for a long time. Something was changing in her eyes. The anger was fading. The confusion was becoming something else. Understanding, perhaps, or the beginning of it. Teach me more, she said. Over the following weeks, did exactly that. He taught about guerrilla tactics, about fighting in small groups instead of large armies, about using the environment as a weapon. He taught her about ambushes and traps and misdirection. He taught her that honor was valuable, but survival was more valuable still. And slowly began to change. She still trained with the other warriors, but now she watched them differently. She saw how predictable they were, how rigid, how easy they would be to defeat if you simply refused to play by their rules. She began to spar with every day, not to beat him anymore, but to learn from him. He never won, not really. She was still too strong, too fast, but he always lasted longer than he should have. And each time they fought, she understood a little more about how his mind worked. One night, as they sat together after a particularly long training session, asked him a question she had been holding inside for weeks. "Do you hate us?" Looked at her. "What do you mean?" "My people invaded your world. We killed your ancestors. We tried to enslave your species." Her voice was heavy with something that sounded almost like shame. "If I were you, I would hate us." Was quiet for a moment. He looked up at the stars, thinking about Earth, about his home. "I do not hate you," he finally said. "What happened was 10,000 years ago. The people who did those things are long dead, and the people who are alive now," he looked at her. "They are different. You are different." "Am I?" "Yes," smiled. The I met in the arena would never have asked that question. She would never have sat here talking to a human like an equal. She would never have admitted doubt or shame. He reached out and touched her arm. It was the first time he had ever done that. "You are changing, and that is good." Stared at his hand on her arm. His skin was so soft compared to her scales, so fragile, and yet so warm. "The war is coming soon," she said quietly. "I know. We might not survive." "I know that too." Turned to face him fully. Her golden eyes were different now. The predator was still there, but something else was there too, something softer. "If we die," she said, "I want you to know that meeting you was the most important thing that ever happened to me. You made me question everything I believed. You made me better." She paused. "Thank you." Before could respond, an alarm began to sound across the city. Red lights flashed in the sky. Soldiers began running toward their stations. Jumped to her feet, all softness gone. She was a warrior again. "The long-range sensors," she said. "Something is coming." They ran to the command center together. High Commander was already there, standing in front of a massive screen that showed the space around the planet. Dozens of ships were approaching. They were black and angular, like knives made of shadow. They moved in perfect formation, leaving trails of dark energy behind them. "The Void Syndicate," said, her voice was grim. "They are here." Stared at the screen. His heart was pounding, but his mind was clear. The war had begun. The Void Syndicate did not announce themselves. They did not send threats or demands. They simply attacked. The first wave hit the orbital defense stations, watched from the command center as 3 of them exploded in bursts of blue fire. The Syndicate ships moved through the debris without slowing down. They did not care about the ships trying to intercept them. They had one goal: reach the planet. "Launch all fighters," High Commander ordered. Her voice was steady but could see the fear in her eyes. She had seen reports of what the Syndicate did to conquered worlds. Everyone had. Hundreds of fighters poured out of the remaining stations. They were beautiful ships, sleek and golden, built for speed and power. They engaged the Syndicate fleet in a storm of plasma fire and explosions. But something was wrong. The Syndicate ships were not fighting back the way normal enemies fought. They were not trying to win the space battle. They were absorbing damage, sacrificing their own vessels just to push closer to the planet. While the fighters celebrated destroying one ship, 10 more slipped past them toward the atmosphere. "They are not trying to beat us in space," said. "They are trying to get soldiers on the ground." Turned to look at him. "What?" "Look at their pattern. They are trading ships for distance. They do not care how many they lose as long as some of them land." Pointed at the screen. "This is not a battle. This is a delivery system." As if to prove his point, the first Syndicate transport broke through the atmosphere. Then another. Then another. They crashed into the surface of the planet like meteors, throwing up clouds of dust and fire. "Ground forces, prepare for engagement," commanded, but her voice had lost its confidence. Grab's arm. "Come with me, we need to get to the surface." They ran through the palace as chaos erupted around them. Soldiers were shouting orders. Civilians were fleeing to shelters. The purple sky had turned red with fire from the falling ships. Outside, they found Lee Minyu waiting for them. The young engineer had been freed from the labor camps a month ago, and he had been working with them ever since, helping them understand human technology and thinking. Minyu said. His face was pale. I have seen the reports from the other worlds the Syndicate attacked. They're soldiers. They are not normal, they are machines inside bodies. They do not feel pain, they do not feel fear, they just keep coming. I know, said. That is why we cannot fight them the traditional way. They made their way to the main defense line on the eastern edge of the capital city. 3,000 warriors stood in perfect formation, their weapons ready, their faces hard. They were magnificent. They looked invincible. Knew they would be dead within the hour if they fought like this. Where is your commander? He asked. I am the commander here. Eyes were fixed on the horizon, where smoke was rising from the Syndicate landing sites. The High Commander is coordinating the space battle. Ground defense is my responsibility. Then you need to listen to me. Grabbed her arm and pulled her close. Your warriors are standing in open formation. They are expecting a traditional battle. The Syndicate will not give them one. What do you suggest? Split them up, small groups. Hide them in buildings, in tunnels, in the ruins. Let the Syndicate think they have won the open ground. Then hit them from everywhere at once. His voice was urgent. Your soldiers are stronger than theirs one-on-one. But if you let them fight in formation, the Syndicate will surround you and crush you with numbers. Hesitated. Everything she had been taught told her that formation was strength, that unity was power, that a warrior should face their enemy head-on. But she had spent weeks learning from. She had seen how he thought, how he fought, how he survived. Do it, she said to her officers. Break formation, small groups spread through the city, wait for my signal. The officers looked at her like she had lost her mind, but they obeyed. They always obeyed. Within minutes, 3,000 warriors had vanished into the city. The empty streets looked abandoned, defenseless. And then the Syndicate came. They marched out of the smoke like an army of nightmares. Their bodies were sized but wrong. Metal bones showed through torn flesh. Eyes glowed with red light. Their movements were perfect, synchronized, mechanical. They did not speak. They did not roar. They simply advanced. Watched them from a rooftop by his side. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. Wait, he whispered. Wait until they are deep in the streets. The Syndicate soldiers moved into the city. They found no resistance, no defenders. They began to spread out, searching buildings, looking for survivors to destroy. Now said, raised her hand and gave the signal. The city exploded. Warriors burst from doorways, from windows, from underground tunnels. They hit the Syndicate from every direction at once. Plasma fire lit up the streets. The screams of metal and flesh mixed together in a terrible symphony. But the Syndicate soldiers did not panic. They did not retreat. They turned and fought with mechanical precision. For everyone that fell, another took its place. The battle became 1,000 small wars, groups of fighting groups of machines in alleys and buildings and courtyards. There was no formation, no order. Just chaos and blood and fire. Ran through the streets with Minyu and a squad of warriors. He was not strong enough to fight the Syndicate soldiers directly, but he could see patterns they could not. He could predict where they would go, where they would be weakest. That building, he shouted, pointing to a half-destroyed structure. They are using it as a rally point. If we collapse it, we can trap 100 of them inside. Minyu nodded and went to work. He had spent weeks studying engineering. He knew how their buildings were constructed, how to bring them down. 5 minutes later, the building collapsed in a mountain of rubble. The trapped Syndicate soldiers were crushed beneath tons of stone. But there were always more. The battle raged for hours. The sun set and rose again. The streets were filled with the bodies of the fallen, both and machine. And then something happened that changed everything. A massive syndicate ship descended from the sky. It was different from the transports, larger, darker. It landed in the central plaza of the city and opened its doors. A figure walked out. He was tall even by standards, but he was not. He was not anything that recognized. His body was a fusion of metal and organic tissue, sleek and terrible. His eyes burned with cold white light. "I am General," he announced. His voice carried across the entire city through speakers built into his body. "Supreme Commander of the Void Syndicate Forces, I have watched your resistance with interest." He looked around at the destruction, at the bodies, at the smoking ruins. "You have fought better than most species. You have adapted, you have surprised us." His voice was calm, almost admiring. "But it is not enough. It will never be enough." He raised his hand. Behind him, hundreds more syndicate soldiers poured out of his ship, fresh troops, undamaged, ready to fight. "I offer you one chance," General said. "Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick. Continue to resist, and I will burn this planet until nothing remains but ash." Silence fell over the city. Warriors looked at each other. Many of them were wounded, exhausted. They had been fighting for almost 2 days without rest. Then stepped forward. She was covered in blood. Her armor was cracked. One of her arms hung at an awkward angle, clearly broken, but she walked toward the general with her head held high. "I am Princess of the Empire," she said, "and I have a counter-offer." General tilted his head, amused. "I am listening." Pointed her blade at him. "Single combat, you and me. If I win, your forces leave this planet forever. If you win," she paused, "you will have earned your victory." The general laughed. It was a cold, mechanical sound. "Brave," he said, "foolish but brave." He drew a blade of his own, a weapon that crackled with dark energy. "I accept." But before they could begin, stepped forward. "No," he said, "not her, me." Everyone turned to stare at him. The human, the small, fragile human who should not have survived a single day on this world. General studied him with those burning white eyes. "A human," he said. "You want to fight me, the Supreme General of the Void Syndicate?" Smiled. It was the same smile he had given in the arena. "Yes," he said, "I do." The general was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed again. "Very well, human. I will enjoy taking you apart piece by piece." Grabbed's arm. Her golden eyes were wide with something he had never seen in them before. Fear for him. "You will die," she whispered. Looked at her. "Maybe," he said, "but if I do, I will die fighting. That is all any human can ask for." He pulled away from her grip and walked toward the general. The duel for 2 worlds was about to begin. The central plaza had become a circle of death. Syndicate soldiers stood on one side, their red eyes fixed on the scene. Warriors stood on the other, wounded and tired but refusing to look away. Above them all, the sky burned with the fires of orbital battle. Stood alone in the center. General walked toward him with the confidence of something that had never known defeat. His body was a masterpiece of destruction. Metal bones reinforced with alien alloys. Synthetic muscles 10 times stronger than organic tissue. Processors that could calculate 1,000 combat scenarios in a single second. Had none of those things. He had soft skin and breakable bones and a brain that worked at the speed of a normal human. He had no weapon except a blade that had thrown to him at the last moment. He was going to die, he knew that. Everyone knew that. But he was going to die fighting. "You are either very brave or very stupid," General said. He stopped 10 feet away from and raised his dark blade. "I have killed thousands of warriors, generals, kings, champions from 100 different species. And you, a human from a forgotten planet, think you can defeat me." "No," said honestly, "I do not think I can defeat you." The general tilted his head. "Then why fight?" "Because if I do not, my people will learn that humans give up. that we surrender when things seem impossible, raised his blade. I would rather die than let them believe that. The general was silent for a moment. Then he made a sound that might have been respect. Interesting, he said. Let us begin. He moved. Had thought was fast, was nothing compared to this. The general crossed the distance between them in less than a heartbeat. His blade swept towards neck in a blur of dark energy. Ducked. The blade passed over his head, close enough that he felt the heat on his scalp. He rolled to the side and came up swinging, but the general was already there, blocking his strike with casual ease. Predictable, the general said. He kicked in the chest. Flew backward and crashed into the ground. He felt ribs crack. Pain exploded through his body, but he got up. He always got up. The general attacked again. This time tried to dodge, to use the techniques he had been teaching for weeks. But the general was not like. He did not get angry. He did not make mistakes. He simply calculated and adjusted and attacked with perfect efficiency. Was hit again and again and again. His arm was broken. His leg was bleeding. His face was a mask of blood and bruises. The blade had been knocked from his hand somewhere during the fight. He was on his knees in the center of the plaza, gasping for breath. The general stood over him, blade raised for the killing blow. You fought well, he said, better than I expected, but this is the end. Looked up at him. His vision was blurry. He could barely think through the pain, but he could see standing at the edge of the plaza, her golden eyes filled with tears. He could see the warriors watching him with expressions of respect and sorrow. He could see Li Minyu clutching something in his hands, looking desperate. And he smiled. It was the same smile he had given in the arena, the same smile he had given the Empress when she tested him, the same smile that said he knew something that no one else knew. What is amusing? The general asked. You are about to die. I know, said. His voice was weak but clear. But you made a mistake. I do not make mistakes. Yes, you do, coughed up Blood. You came here to fight. You prepared for strength and speed and honor. You calculated 1,000 scenarios. He looked up at the general's burning white eyes. But you forgot one thing. What? Smile grew wider. I am human, and humans cheat. Before the general could react, collapsed forward like a dead man. His body went limp. His eyes closed. The general stood there for a moment, confused. The sensors in his body showed that his heart was still beating, but barely. The human had simply given up, surrendered to death. Disappointing. The general leaned down to confirm the kill. He wanted to look into the human's eyes when the light faded from them. He wanted to see the moment hope died. That was when moved. He had been hiding something. A small blade, no longer than his hand, taken from a fallen syndicate soldier during the battle in the city. He had kept it hidden in his sleeve, waiting for this exact moment. The general was leaning close. His guard was down for just a fraction of a second. His calculations had not predicted that a dying human would have the strength to attack. Drove the blade into the general's neck, where the organic tissue met the metal spine. It was the only weak point in his entire body, the only place where a simple blade could do real damage. The general screamed. It was a terrible sound, half mechanical and half alive. He stumbled backward, clutching at his neck. Sparks flew from the wound. Dark fluid poured down his chest. Impossible, he gasped. My calculations, you were dead, you should have been. Forced himself to stand. Every muscle in his body was screaming. Every bone felt broken, but he stood. You calculated wrong, he said. You do not understand humans. You see us as weak because our bodies are weak. You see us as simple because our technology is simple, but we are neither. He took a step toward the general. We are survivors, and survivors do whatever it takes to win. The general tried to raise his blade, but his motor functions were failing. The damage to his neck had severed critical connections. His perfect body was betraying him. This is not honorable, he said. This is not a fair fight. No, agreed, it is not. He picked up his blade from where it had fallen and walked toward the general. But I am not fighting for honor. I am not fighting for glory, stood in front of the broken machine creature. I am fighting for my people, for Earth, for everyone you would destroy. He raised the blade, and for them I will fight as dirty as I have to. He brought the blade down. The general's body collapsed to the ground. The light in his white eyes flickered and died. The supreme commander of the Void Syndicate was no more. For a moment there was complete silence. Then the Syndicate soldiers began to fall back. Without their general's commands, they had no purpose, no direction. They retreated to their ships and rose into the sky, fleeing the planet they had thought would be easy prey. The warriors stared in disbelief. Then one of them began to cheer, then another, then all of them. The sound of their voices was like thunder. They shouted his name, they shouted his species. Human, human, human. But did not hear them. He was falling. His body had finally reached its limit. The adrenaline was fatting and the pain was overwhelming. Caught him before he hit the ground. She said, her voice was desperate, "Stay with me." He looked up at her. Her golden eyes were the only clear thing in his fatting vision. "Did we win?" he whispered. Yes, was crying now, actual tears falling down her scaled cheeks. Yes, we won. Smiled one last time. Good, he said. Then everything went dark. Screamed for medics. She carried his broken body across the plaza herself, refusing to let anyone else touch him. She ran faster than she had ever run before, faster than she had run into any battle. Because for the first time in her life, understood something important. Strength was not just about fighting. It was about fighting for something worth protecting. And right now, the thing she wanted to protect more than anything else was the small, stubborn, impossible human in her arms. Opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was white. A white ceiling, white walls, soft white light that did not hurt his eyes. He blinked slowly, trying to remember where he was, trying to remember what had happened. Then the pain hit him. Not as bad as before, more like an echo of pain, a memory of what his body had suffered. He tried to move his hand and found that it worked. He tried to move his arm and felt bandages wrapped around it. He was alive. He was alive. You are awake. Turned his head, was sitting next to his bed. She looked different, softer somehow. The hard edges of her warrior face had smoothed away. Her golden eyes were watching him with an expression he had never seen before. How long? Asked. His voice was rough, like he had not used it in a long time. 3 weeks. Stood and walked to the window. Outside could see the city. It was different now. Many buildings were still damaged, but construction machines were everywhere, rebuilding, recovering. The doctors said you should have died. Your heart stopped 4 times. Your brain showed no activity for almost an hour. She turned to look at him. But you kept coming back. Tried to laugh, but it hurt too much. Humans are stubborn. Yes, almost smiled. I am beginning to understand that. Over the next few days, learned what had happened while he was unconscious. The Void Syndicate had retreated from space entirely. Without general to lead them, their fleet had fallen into chaos. Some ships had turned on each other. Others had fled into deep space. The war was not over. The Syndicate was still out there somewhere, but for now it was safe. Also learned that he had become a legend. The story of the human who had killed the Supreme General spread across the galaxy like fire. Every species that had ever been threatened by the Syndicate heard about it. Every world that had lost hope found it again. A single human, with no special powers or advanced technology, had done what entire armies could not. He had refused to give up. When was finally strong enough to walk, took him to the throne room. The Empress was waiting for them, along with hundreds of nobles and warriors. Li Minyu was there too, standing awkwardly among the tall aliens. He smiled when he saw and gave him a small wave. Empress rose from her throne as entered. The room fell silent. "Of Earth," she said, her ancient voice carried across the chamber. "You came to us as a prisoner, a specimen from a forgotten world. We looked at you and saw weakness. We saw a creature that could be broken." She walked down the steps from her throne, moving slowly but with dignity. "We were wrong." She stopped in front of and looked into his eyes. "You have taught us more in a few months than we have learned in 10,000 years. You have shown us that true strength is not in the body. It is in the spirit. It is in the will to keep fighting when all hope is lost." She turned to address the crowd. "For too long we have hidden from our past. We erased humanity from our histories because we were ashamed, because they defeated us when we should have won." Her voice grew stronger. "No more. Today I declare that the quarantine of Earth is ended. Humanity is not our enemy. They are not our prisoners. They are our allies." The crowd murmured. Some faces showed surprise, others showed anger, but most showed something that looked like acceptance. They had all seen what had done. They had all heard the stories. "Furthermore," the Empress continued, "I am nomming as the new High Commander of our military forces. Her first act will be to create a permanent alliance between the Empire and the people of Earth." Stepped forward and bowed to the Empress. When she straightened, her face was determined. "I accept this honor," she said, "and my first request is that remain here as our chief advisor. His knowledge saved our world. It will save many more before this war is finished." The Empress looked at, "What do you say, human? Will you stay with us?" Was quiet for a moment. He thought about Earth, about his home, about the people he had left behind. He had been away for so long. Part of him wanted nothing more than to go back. But another part of him knew that this was bigger than his own desires. The Void Syndicate was still out there. Other worlds would be attacked. Other species would need help, and if he could make a difference, he had to try. "I will stay," he said, "but I have conditions." "Name them." "First, the alliance must go both ways. You will protect Earth, and Earth will fight beside you. We will learn from each other. Neither species is superior. Neither species gives orders to the other." The Empress nodded, agreed. "Second, you will share your technology with us, not as a gift but as partners. Help us build ships that can travel between stars. Help us take our place in the galaxy." Also agreed. Third, paused, he looked at, then back at the Empress. "You will tell your people the truth, all of it. The invasion 10,000 years ago, the defeat, the erasure, everything. Your history belongs to you, but lies have a way of coming back to cause harm. It is better to face the past honestly than to hide from it." This time, the Empress was silent for a long moment. Telling the truth meant admitting that the great empire had been humbled by primitive humans. It meant showing weakness to every other species in the galaxy. But she looked at this small, impossible creature who had survived everything they had thrown at him, who had smiled in the face of death, who had cheated to win and felt no shame about it. "Agreed," she said finally. "The truth will be told." The ceremony continued, but stopped paying attention to the speeches and formalities. He slipped away from the crowd and found a quiet balcony overlooking the city. Found him there a few minutes later. "You should be inside," she said. "You are the hero of the hour." "I am tired of being looked at," leaned against the railing. "Where I come from, we have a saying, the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. That sounds unpleasant. It means that standing out can be dangerous, that being too different makes you a target, looked out at the rebuilding city. But sometimes the nail has no choice. Sometimes it has to stand up anyway." Stood beside him. She was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice was softer than he had ever heard it. "When we first met, I wanted to kill you. You were everything I hated, small, weak, but you did not act like prey. You did not bow or beg or break." She turned to face him. "I did not understand. How could something so fragile be so strong?" And now asked, "Now I think I understand," reached out and touched his face with her massive hand. It was surprisingly gentle. Humans are not strong because of their bodies. You are strong because of what is inside you. The thing that makes you smile when you should scream. The thing that makes you stand up when you should stay down. She leaned closer. "I have killed hundreds of enemies. I have led armies. I have never been defeated in single combat." Her golden eyes locked onto his. "But you have changed me more than all of those battles combined. You have made me question everything I thought I knew, and I think that is called growth." Smiled. It was the same smile he had given her in the arena, the smile that had started everything. "Careful," he said, "that is how it starts." Stared at him for a moment. Then she did something that no warrior had ever done in recorded history. She laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and surprised and full of joy. It echoed off the walls of the balcony and floated out into the night. Laughed too, and for a moment they were not an alien warrior princess and a human survivor. They were just two people who had been through hell together and come out the other side. Below them, the city continued to rebuild. Above them, the stars shone with the light of 1,000 worlds. And somewhere out there, the Void Syndicate was still a threat. But for now, none of that mattered. What mattered was that they were alive. They had won, and the future, whatever it held, was theirs to face together. And a human. The universe would never be the same. 3 months later, a ship from Earth arrived at the park. Stepped off the vessel, leading a delegation of human diplomats and military officers. She found waiting for her on the landing platform, standing beside a towering woman with violet scales. "You look different," said, studying her old friend. "Bigger somehow." Smiled. "I have been eating well." "And who is this?" Looked up at with professional interest. "This is High Commander," said. "She is the reason we are all still alive." Bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect she had learned from watching humans. "It is an honor to meet more of people. I hope this is the beginning of a long friendship between our species." Smiled. "Something tells me it will be." She turned back too, her expression growing serious. "Earth has received your message. The governments have agreed to the alliance. Ships are being built. Soldiers are being trained." She paused. "We are scared. We are stepping onto a stage we never knew existed. We are not ready." Put his hand on her shoulder. "No one is ever ready," he said, "but that has never stopped us before." He looked up at the purple sky of this alien world that had become his second home. He thought about everything that had happened. The arena, the battles, the victories, the losses. And he smiled. Because was human, and humans never gave up. Never.